Good Sunday morning. This is the Great Basin Fire Potential Outlook. Taking a look at our impact maps, and we have quite a few for today. Through Wednesday, we have wind concerns where we have some of our new fires along the Sierra front across northern portions of Nevada, stretching into a good portion of Idaho. Big concern with existing fires and new ones possibly coming up from recent lightning. And we also have the lightning for today, again, in this area through here in the red across northern Utah, parts of eastern Idaho, and into western Wyoming. And another system will come in and cause that again on Tuesday. Lightning further south across Utah will be trending wetter as we go across the southern third of the state, but still another round of lightning on top of all the lightning we've recently had. And we can see on the right-hand side how much occurred in the past 24 hours, just a carpet bombing of it across southern Nevada to southern Utah. A lot of this came with some low-end to mid-range wetting rains. However, the further north you go, the drier the lightning had, with just scattered light precipitation across a good portion of our area once again. Precipitation on the left-hand side, fairly light. The first shade of blue indicates just a trace to less than a quarter inch. Where you see the darker blues or the greens is where the lightning was primarily wet. New fire starts given by the red circles, and you can see a good cluster across parts of Nevada and scattered about also into Idaho and southern Utah, where we had the most concentrated lightning. So that'll be a concern as we heat up and fuels are critically dry. Observed precipitation over the past 7 days. You can see quite dry, just a bit of a light shade of non-wetting rain across parts of Idaho and into parts of Nevada. It's just down towards the Arizona Strip and in little parts of southern Nevada where we had some localized wetting rains. Go into the past 30 days, you can see how dry a good portion of Nevada has been into northern Utah and into southern Idaho as well. A lot of this rain up in the mountains of central Idaho occurred about 30 days ago, so there have been about 2-3 weeks of drying here. Fuels are approaching critical status in many areas. Fire activity is picking up. We did have some monsoonal activity across our southern areas a few weeks ago, and they'll be getting some once again. And we show that because we take a look at our fuels, where the rains in southern areas from about 2 weeks ago and some of the higher humidity and showers recently have pushed some of our ERCs into that yellow or green category, which is towards the 50th percentile or below. But you can see that's a fairly small area, and most areas are in the 90th to 97th percentile. This is basically as dry as we've seen it over as large of an area in several years. A look at our water vapor imagery with upper level maps superimposed. You can see a vast mass of subtropical moisture from the monsoon across Arizona, New Mexico, the whole Four Corners area. The most highlighted areas are in the south. You can see across Nevada the tannish and dark colors indicate where drier air is punching in. These tightening height lines through here, the closeness of them to one another indicates where the wind field is tightening up. So we do have some wind concerns for Idaho and into parts of northern Nevada today and especially over the next couple of days. So taking a look at our significant fire potential for today, you can see we have wind concerns in some areas that have new fires across the Sierra front. Widespread winds of close to 30-mile-an-hour gusts for several hours this afternoon, combined with fairly low humidity and or critically dry fuels. And further south, yes, we have the lightning concerns, a mix of dry and wet strikes across the northern half of Utah and still in some parts of Nevada, and also expanding up into parts of western Wyoming. Further to the south, any lightning should be fairly wet, given by the fuels going from yellow to green. Now, if we look at the weather factors behind it, on the left-hand side, areas in green is where we could see isolated showers or thunderstorms. However, on the right-hand side, looking at winds, and these shades in the orange to purple are wind gusts anywhere from 25 to perhaps 30 miles per hour in the lee of the Sierra, and also into a good portion of Idaho as well, where they've had lightning. So that's a fairly good concern. And even the dark green areas, wind gusts close to 20 miles an hour could pose some problems. So we'll have some of those winds down south, but that should be coming up with higher humidity. On Monday, on the left-hand side, weather map shows low pressure trough dropping down to Pacific Northwest. It's going to bring in some drier Pacific air that's actually coming in aloft, so that should actually dry things out across Nevada and Idaho. That's pretty critical because they've had lightning there for a couple of days and they're going to get a push of wind and some drier conditions. We do have high risk for wind continuing across the Sierra front, otherwise fairly dry the rest of the area, so we'll be concerned about holdovers except for southern Utah, once again, where they should be greening up pretty good. And weather factors on Monday, still some isolated showers and thunderstorms on the left where you see the light shades of green. On the right hand side you can see where the winds are, and you notice where the orange shades continuing. Those are gusts close to 30 there, and a smaller portion of Idaho, but winds in a lot of areas diminish. These little circles you see here is where the computer model thinks that outflow boundaries from thunderstorms, basically downbursts, could occur. And those are winds that are typically 40-50 miles an hour for maybe a half hour or so. Something to keep in mind with any existing fires is that with thunderstorms in the vicinity, those brief outflow winds could cause a brief shift in wind direction with increased wind speed. Something to keep in mind for safety. On Tuesday, trough of low pressure deepening over Washington state, tightening up the wind gradient across parts of the Great Basin, especially the western part. So on the right hand side you can see our high risk for wind expands to cover much of northern Nevada and into a good portion of Idaho. We also have lightning concerns returning briefly for eastern Idaho and parts of northern Utah. As this trough of low pressure drops down, it's actually adding dynamics to the atmosphere, so some of the residual moisture that we're getting could be pulled up into some thunderstorm activity. And the thunderstorms, even though they might be laying down rain, will have some good storm motion behind them, so it should not be raining for a long period in any one spot. So that's why we have concerns for lightning on Tuesday. And weather factors on Tuesday, you can see with the showers on the left-hand side, the wind concerns, see more of that orange shade, wind gusts of close to 30 or so expanding across Nevada and into a good portion of Idaho, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. And if we look at precipitation expected over the next 3 days from this morning, Sunday through Wednesday morning, you can see deep monsoonal moisture coming up with heavy rains across Arizona. But the only places to get good rains in our area will be across southern Utah. Elsewhere, rainfall amounts will be fairly light. Looking further down the road on Wednesday, still the trough of low pressure, driest air to the western and northern areas of the Great Basin. Still high risk for wind concerns pushing into eastern Idaho, western Wyoming on the heels of lightning. So again, a concern for holdovers or existing fires getting some wind. And then Thursday, things quiet down. You see these yellow height lines kind of spreading out. That means the winds diminish. We do see a surge of deeper monsoonal moisture by this shade of green coming in. When you see this coming in, this is where it's going to be wet thunderstorms, fairly stationary, maybe in some flooding in southern areas. And so on the right-hand side, you see that vast coverage of green to our south. And you'll actually see as we go in time more areas green up, and by the time we get into Saturday, even northern Utah will get some wet thunderstorms, enough to maybe knock us down a little bit, but there'll be a northern edge across most of Idaho and the western half of Nevada which stays critically dry and stays out of that wet thunderstorm pattern through the entire period. So we look at precipitation over the 7-day total. Very typical monsoonal stuff. This is what we should have had a couple of weeks ago. These 3, 4, 5-inch rain amounts coming in and covering more of a portion of Utah all the way up into the Uintas. But you can see from the Wasatch on to the west and to the north, rainfall amounts will be very minor. And looking down for days 8 to 14, we see a cooler than normal signal across the Pacific Northwest and the Great Basin. So we should be not as hot as before, but with low pressure through here, we should be cutting off the monsoon. So areas will be drying out across much of the area. We don't see that green above normal precipitation pattern, so a respite from the monsoon once again. This concludes our briefing. Have a great day.